Man defends elderly woman on bus while heading to meet fiancée's parents. Her revelation leaves him shocked. And Henry was on his way to meet his fiancée's parents for the first time when an unexpected commotion on the bus altered his path. After intervening in a theft, he missed his stop and received a cryptic warning from a mysterious elderly woman. As tensions rose during the dinner with Emily's parents, a shocking revelation threatened to unravel everything. The city buzzed with life as Henry sat on the bus, nervously clutching a bouquet. He was on his way to meet his fiancée's parents for the first time. The weight of this meeting pressed heavily on him, wanting everything to be perfect. His mind raced with possible scenarios and conversations, trying to anticipate every question they might ask. And he wanted to impress Emily's parents and prove himself worthy to be their son-in-law. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the front of the bus, interrupting Henry's line of thought. A teenage boy, no older than 16, was attempting to steal a wallet from an elderly woman. Without hesitation, Henry leaped to his feet. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" his voice echoed through the bus. The teen looked startled and tried to run, but Henry grabbed him by the arm and held on until the driver stopped the bus and called the police. The other passengers watched in a mix of admiration and relief as the boy was taken away. The elderly woman, her hands trembling, looked up at Henry with gratitude. "Thank you, young man. You saved me." "It was nothing," Henry replied with a warm smile. "Just glad I could help." In the chaos, Henry realized he had missed his stop. Panic surged through him. He checked his watch. He was already running late. As he prepared to make his way back, the elderly woman followed him off the bus. "Please, let me thank you properly," she said. "My name is Agnes, and I have a gift for seeing the future. Would you allow me to read your fortune?" Henry hesitated. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm really in a hurry. I'm meeting my fiancée's parents for the first time today." Agnes's eyes darkened. "Who rushes to a funeral?" she said cryptically. Henry frowned. "What funeral? I'm meeting the love of my life's parents. Believe me, if you go there, a funeral is inevitable. To avoid this, never tell her father your real last name." Henry's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "Your last name is tied to something dark. Her father will recognize it, and it will lead to tragedy. Trust me." Henry was bewildered but also intrigued. He didn't believe in fortune-telling, but something about Agnes's demeanor made him pause. "All right, what should I do?" Agnes handed him a small, ornate card with her contact information. "If you need more guidance, call me. But remember, do not reveal your real last name." Henry nodded and gave her his number too. He thanked her again and hurried off to catch another bus. His mind raced even faster now, filled with a mixture of anxiety and curiosity. Henry arrived at Emily's parents' house, a beautiful, sprawling estate on the outskirts of the city. Emily greeted him at the door, radiant with excitement. "You're here. I was getting worried," she said, hugging him tightly. "Sorry, I had a bit of an adventure on the way," Henry replied, forcing a smile. As they walked inside, Henry's nerves returned. In the grand living room, Emily's parents, Charles and Margaret, waited. Charles, a stern-looking man with sharp features, eyed Henry critically. Margaret, in contrast, had a welcoming demeanor. "Henry, it's so nice to finally meet you," Margaret said, shaking his hand warmly. Charles merely nodded, his piercing gaze making Henry uneasy. "Thank you for having me," Henry said, trying to sound confident. The evening started smoothly with a polite conversation over drinks. Remembering Agnes's warning, Henry lied that his last name was Johnson. As the night progressed, Charles's questions became more probing. "So, Henry, tell us about your family. Where are they from?" Charles asked, his eyes narrowing slightly. Henry felt a bead of sweat form on his forehead. "Oh, we're just a simple family from the city. Nothing too remarkable." Charles didn't seem satisfied with the vague answer but didn't press further. Instead, he switched topics to Henry's career and ambitions. The tension in the room eased slightly. "What do you do for a living?" Henry Charles asked, still sounding skeptical. "I'm a marketing manager at a tech company," Henry replied. Charles raised an eyebrow. And what are your long-term goals? Henry took a deep breath. I hope to start my own business one day. Margaret smiled. That's wonderful. Henry's ambition is important. Emily beamed with pride, saying Henry's very talented. I'm sure he'll succeed. Charles remained silent, his expression unreadable. Henry couldn't shake the feeling that Emily's dad was judging him harshly. Despite the pleasant welcome from Margaret and Emily, Agnes's warning echoed in his mind. As dinner was served, the conversation turned to more personal topics. Margaret asked how Henry and Emily met, and they both recounted the story with fondness. Then, an unexpected turn of events occurred. I did some research on you, Henry, Charles said, suddenly, his voice cold. I know your real last name isn't Johnson. It's Blackwood, isn't it? Henry's blood ran cold. How could Charles have found out? He had been so careful. Emily looked at him, confused and hurt. Why would you lie about your name, she asked, her voice trembling. Henry swallowed hard, his mind racing. I can explain. Charles stood up, his face filled with anger. There's nothing to explain. The Blackwood name is infamous in this town. Your uncle killed my sister in a hit-and-run accident and was never caught. Your family has a history of evading justice. I can't believe you would deceive us like this. Margaret gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Is this true, Henry? She whispered. Henry nodded slowly. Yes, it's true. My family has a troubled past, but I didn't want that to affect our future. I love you. Emily, I didn't mean to deceive you. Emily stood up, tears streaming down her face. I need some time to think, she said, her voice breaking. Henry watched helplessly as she ran out of the room. Charles glared at him. You need to leave. Now. Henry left the house, his heart heavy with regret. He walked aimlessly through the streets, replaying the events of the evening in his mind. He had lost everything in a matter of minutes. A few days later, Emily called Henry and agreed to meet him at a quiet cafe. Her eyes were puffy from crying, but she looked determined. What is your explanation for all these? She demanded as soon as Henry sat down. Henry took a deep breath. I was raised in an orphanage. Emily, I never knew my parents. The only thing I have that connects me to my biological family is my last name. When I found out what my uncle had done, I was horrified, but I had no part in it. I didn't want to carry that burden with me, so I changed my name to start fresh. I never wanted to deceive you. Emily's expression softened slightly. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I was afraid, Henry admitted. Afraid of losing you, afraid of your reaction. I love you so much, Emily, and I didn't want my family's past to ruin our future. Emily sighed, her resolve wavering. It's a lot to take in, Henry, but I appreciate your honesty now. We need to rebuild trust. Henry nodded. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. Please, just give me a chance. Days passed, and Henry received no word from Emily. He felt lost and alone. One evening, his phone rang. It was Agnes. I sensed you might need my help again, she said gently. Henry poured out his heart to her, explaining everything that happened. Agnes listened patiently and then spoke. There is a way to make things right, but it will require great courage and honesty. You must face your family's past and seek forgiveness from those who were wrong. Henry was skeptical but desperate. What do I need to do? Agnes explained that Henry's family had wronged many people in the town, including Charles's own family. To earn back their trust, he needed to make amends and show that he was different from his ancestors. Henry took a deep breath. I'll do whatever it takes. Henry spent the next few weeks visiting the families his ancestors had wronged. He listened to their stories, apologized sincerely, and offered to help in any way he could. It was a humbling experience, but slowly he began to earn their forgiveness. One day, he received a call from Emily she wanted to meet. They met at a small cafe, and Emily looked at him with a mix of hope and sadness. I've heard about what you've been doing, she said. It means a lot to me and my family. Henry took her hand. I'm so sorry for deceiving you. I love you, and I want to make things right. Emily squeezed his hand. I believe you, but we need to rebuild the trust we lost. Henry nodded. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. With Agnes's help, Henry delved into old records, spoke to surviving relatives, and pieced together the story of his family's past. He discovered the depth of his family's wrongdoings and the pain they had caused. Henry brought this information to Charles, who was both devastated and relieved to finally know the truth. It took time, but with Henry's continued efforts to make amends and his unwavering love for Emily, the families began to heal. Emily, seeing Henry's determination and integrity, decided to give their relationship another chance. They worked together to build a future free from the shadows of their past, proving that love and honesty could overcome even the deepest wounds.